I am the director of Anderson's Arena, which is a company that goes into organisations and uses positive psychology to get the people together to improve productivity. I do that through one-on-one coaching. I do that for A&I, which is appreciative inquiry, where you look at the positives and you expand that so they wipe out the negatives. If you look at like a SWOT analysis, people tend to go, oh, look at the negatives and the positives, and we'll analyse those and balance them out. What tends to happen is people look on the negatives, they forget about the positives, and the whole thing's a disaster. And this has been researched a lot and expands the positive to grow the strength. So that's the idea of what I do. I do sales training, I do referral marketing training, and those are the types of things I do to help companies. My background is a little bit unusual. I come from the performing arts. I was a contemporary dancer and choreographer, and I lived around Europe, and I retired in Iceland, and then I did an MA in Leadership and Change because I thought I was going to become a dance director. But personal lives shifted all that, and I ended up back in the UK and in sales. And then I've been doing NLP for 15 years, and I mixed it all together. So that's what brings me here today, to express and share with you different styles of leadership, what I've experienced in the arts and what I'm seeing in businesses. It's very interesting that they're calling this type of mindset into businesses, that collaboration is becoming a strength in businesses. Creative thinking is becoming a strength in businesses. While previously that was considered soft skills, the soft skills are tending to be sometimes stronger than the so-called hard skills of just getting in that and smashing somebody and hit your targets and this ownership of what it means to work in your place. We're finding out that if you're not there in your head, you can hit people as much as you want, they just won't do it. They'll do what is necessary, but they won't expand through that. But when you inspire, when there's an intrinsic motivation behind the work process, then there's buy-in and they're actually adding into the team and building the company forward. So if it's okay with you today, I'm going to talk a little bit about authentic leadership. Would that be okay? Yeah. Okay, great. Because that's all I've got worked out for today. So. Okay, so the thing I find very interesting about authentic leadership is that there's about 1,000 different styles of leadership. There's just a list that goes on and on. Leadership started off with this sense of the trait theory, the great man theory. I was born with the gift to lead and everyone will follow me. And then as we evolved, we started to see that you can train leadership, that it's not just about a man being great, and that through collaboration we can expand, through our relationships we can build more than just the individual leader. There's almost a screaming for authenticity at the moment, and I believe it came from these kind of consensus that a lot of leaders looked at. So they go and do research, and people say, well, what do you think about this policy? And they go, oh yes, this is what I want, this is what I want. And the leader goes, haha, I know I'm going to get my votes. That's what I do. And they go in and they put their policy towards it, but it's just been a tick box on a piece of paper. Somebody's mood changes, or the wind shifts, and suddenly, oh no, actually, I don't like that, I actually prefer this. And they go, okay, change the policy, and we'll go after this. And they go, oh, change the policy. And the leadership is going like this. And it's just based on the surface side of what people really desire to change their lives. And then what happens is people aren't standing there and delivering from a purpose that is a communication from the relationships that give them the voice. And that's where people are desperate for that sense. And we look at what we consider great leaders, most of them are coming from a sense of deep purpose. And that can change and that can evolve over time goes on as they learn and they listen. But there's something that's driving them. If we just do consensus forms, we're missing that authenticity. Now, a wonderful tool for authenticity is creativity, creative thinking, and resilience, like emotional resilience. These two really support authenticity. And that's what I'd like to share with you today. So creativity is very interesting. There's a lot of fear that sometimes when you say creativity, like, what? And I think a lot of the time that comes from my educational structure. the marking system where from a very young age, it's either a yes or a no. And creativity doesn't really go in yes and no. It blends its way. It could be fail, fail, miss, 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 and then there it is. But if you don't go through the failure and the muck-ups, you don't get to the actual end point. And actually this morning, my boy was having a little bit of, I wasn't going to share this, but I'm going to share it anyway because it's happening in the moment. My boy's 5 years old, and he didn't want to go to school because he wasn't allowed to go and play because his reading wasn't good enough. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So at his age, his natural expression is being punished because he hasn't done the work right. So it's beginning already in that way of structure. So we had a little chat, and he was talking about, I wanted to do this, and I'm no good, and I can't do it. And I was like, okay, let's just have a look at the bike. And what was interesting for me, that failure and success was already starting to separate. I said, do you remember the time when you were learning to ride your bicycle the other day? He was like, yeah. He said, I'm really good at riding my bicycle. I said, yeah, fantastic. He goes, yeah, I am, yeah. And I said, do you remember how many times you fell off? And he goes, yeah, I hurt myself, I bruised my knee, I did my... And he said, can you remember those days so much now? He said, no. He said, sometimes you got to fall. Actually, all the times you got to fall to ride a bicycle. Yeah, you can't ride it without falling. The two are married together. Yes. So I just was bringing this story to him that although it's uncomfortable now, it is part of the process to when he's going to be a great writer. So we just played around with that. And he was going to write a book about how this boy rode on a bicycle and took all, these dog cartoons with him. I can't remember what they're called. And then we just changed the pattern. So the idea is that my intention was to mix that the failure doesn't equal to the stopping, that it is a part of the process. And when we sit with those stressors, it also helps us get to the other place. And that's where resilience comes in place as well. So with resilience, I think the interesting thing is we have habit loops that turn away from pain and turn towards pleasure. Now, if you're in a business, I'm guessing you've probably had a bit of stress in your life. And there's sometimes when those stresses are needed to get to where you need to get. I feel generally in life that's what happened. When I look back and there's something that I'm like, I can't handle this, the world's a disaster. And then when it's all over, if I'm able to navigate through it, I look back and go, I get it. I had to go through that to where I am now. And I think most births, especially human births, are quite painful. And when we need to grow, we need to go through a sense of pushing. Now, if we have a habit loop that prefers to go towards pleasure, when that stressor comes in, we're going to avoid it. Now, if we take the example of stressors are needed to grow our business or ourselves, we have a slight problem. Because part of us is going away towards the pleasure, and the stressors take us towards the growth. So when we become emotionally resilient, we are able to sit with the body that is screaming. Don't go, don't do it. When we just sit with it and acknowledge the feelings, then we can not let it, we don't have to be a reaction of it. We can just start to, not control, but navigate ourselves through it emotionally as well. So with creativity, I find quite interesting. There's one theory that creativity is one of the most important things in leadership today. And the reason, because of the changing pace that we're in at the moment. Once upon a time, you could get your process together, and you just do your process, and you just repeat it and repeat it. And things weren't changing, so you had to be aware, but it wasn't changing so much. That process would look after you. A little bit like, what was it? Blockbusters, the video plays? They had their thing, they was churning out, when I got my video, got my popcorn for £2, only £2 of popcorn. Go back and they were just churning it. And the internet was just coming up. And they were churning. Gone. Now, if they were in a creative mindset that led to innovation, if they had that in their company, they would be ready for change, but they weren't. That wasn't what their process was. They were managing